Phones are turned off, and that it will be rebroadcast via CityLink and posted on the www.minnehahacounty.org site for viewing by the general public. Any final action taken on the conditional use permit application tonight will take effect 5 working days following this meeting unless a written appeal of the Planning Commission's decision is filed in the Planning Office by Monday, July 30th at 5 p.m. In the event of an appeal, the decision will be referred to the County Commission for a hearing on Tuesday, August 14th at or after 9 a.m. And the affected parties will be notified of the meeting date. Meetings at the County Commission are also held in this same room. At this time, we will, public input. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on anything that is not on the agenda? You're allowed 5 minutes to address the commission. Okay, we'll start with item number 1 is the approval of the minutes of June 25th. Item number 2 is conditional use permit 18-34 to amend conditional use permit 16-75 to allow 6,686 square feet of total accessory building area on the property. It's approximately 3 miles southeast of Brandon. The petitioner is Lori Richards. I also want to make note that if anybody would like to speak on or opposes this, they need to raise their hand and we will move this to the regular agenda. Item number 3, conditional use permit 18-35 to transfer 1 building eligibility. This is the Betty Oakley Living Trust. It's approximately 2 miles southwest of Baltic, and like I said, this would transfer 1 building eligibility. Item number 4, conditional use permit 18-36 to exceed 3,600 square feet of total accessory building area. This is located about a half a mile east of Hartford. Petitioner is John Morris, and this would allow 4,280 square feet of total accessory building area. Anyone want to speak as opposition on this? Okay. Need a motion to approve item number 1, 2, 3, and 4.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Any of those have been approved, you are free to go.
Meetings, though, if you'd like.
Move on to the regular agenda. Item number 5, David.
Good evening, Commission. David Heinold, County Planning Department. Item number 5 was a deferral from the last month's meeting, June 25th. Conditional use permit 18-33 is to allow a bed and breakfast establishment. And this property is located about 2.5 miles directly east of Crooks. As you can see on the map, it is outlined in red. Petitioner's property encompasses approximately 4.72 acres. As you can see, the house is located directly right off Renberg Street, which is the driveway is directly off of that, right on the west side of that property itself. And so the bed and breakfast establishment is for 1-day, weekend, and week-long stays in an existing 20-foot by 30-foot detached accessory building until the house addition for, as was brought up with the site plan itself. So going into the site plan, this is the existing home right here. And this addition right here is currently under construction. This building is that 20-foot by 30-foot building that the petitioner is requesting to allow a bed and breakfast establishment until that house addition is finished. At which time the petitioner plans to transition that accessory building into just personal storage of household consumption. Just going through that. That is the request. Staff went out on the property and met with the applicant and discussed the conditional use permit request because of the nature, and added additional conditions on this permit request for a bed and breakfast establishment to ensure that this property remains in full compliance with the zoning ordinance having just one house on the property, because this property only allows one building eligibility, which allows one residence on site. So just as a quick update with the criteria, one, for proving conditional use permits. One, the effect upon use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for uses already permitted and upon property values in the immediate vicinity. This property itself is located in an agricultural area with the surrounding area. As you can see from the map, there are a couple existing subdivisions with 20 to 30 homes or more in those subdivisions each, of roughly 1 to 2 acre lot sizes with each of those subdivisions to the east and to the south of this subject property. The effect upon the use and enjoyment of other residential properties in the immediate vicinity should not be negatively affected by the proposed use of the building for bed and breakfast establishment for one-day, weekend, week-long accommodations. The written narrative describes the petitioner's request, which was provided to you for utilization of the building until the house is finished. And so the zoning ordinance, as I mentioned, the zoning ordinance describes that a bed and breakfast establishment can only may provide no more than 10 bedrooms for guests, exclusive of the living quarters for the owner or operator, which the future proposal is the addition on the house, which the petitioner can clarify on that, but I think there's 4 or 5 bedrooms in that, so it meets well below that standard that is defined in the ordinance. 2, the effect upon the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for uses predominant in the area. This property is single-family dwellings all around. It's very unlikely that the surrounding area would change because of the availability of building eligibilities in the area. Most have already been used up with the existing lots in the area and just the remaining farmland around that. 3, the utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities are provided. This property already contains all of the necessary facilities to be in accordance with the zoning ordinance and other applicable laws. 4, that the off-street parking and loading requirements are met. The petitioner has included a plan for providing guest parking directly in front of the existing house. This is to the north of the house right there, and as you can see, the driveways come in here, and there's an existing row of trees right there, which the petitioner has also proposed more additional parking for guests, so no overnight parking would be allowed at all or in the right-of-way of the township road on Renberg Street in the public right-of-way. 5, that measures are taken to control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, vibration, and lighting inclusive of lighted signs so that none of these will constitute a nuisance. The existing 20-foot by 30-foot detached accessory building and planned addition to the existing house proposed to be used as set back approximately 550 feet northwest of the nearest dwelling, and that's to the south of this in the existing subdivision. The proposed operation of a bed and breakfast establishment brings possible noise disturbances to surrounding property owners with new guests. The county does not have a noise ordinance, so there are certain things that can go on within that, but there is no enforcement mechanism for that. But staff recommends adding a condition on the permit limiting check-in time for bed and breakfast for the bed and breakfast establishment to no later than 10:30 p.m. all week long to mitigate any potential noise disturbances of late night guests trying to find the property or at this site. 6, health, safety, general welfare of the public and the comprehensive plan. This property lies adjacent to those existing subdivisions, which are mostly developed with previously platted lots. This property only allows one house on the site with the building eligibility that is there, in compliance with the density zoning ordinance. Staff acknowledges that the 20-foot by 30 detached accessory building has a living quarters in it, with a stove inside it, and is in violation of the zoning ordinance. So staff recommends adding a proposed condition on the permit for removing the living quarters, which would entail removing the stove out of the building by December 28th, 2018, which staff believes is an appropriate time transition to fully complete the house addition that the petitioner plans to utilize as a bed and breakfast establishment. In any of the other detached accessory buildings on the site, as was mentioned, cannot be used for any living quarters for the bed and breakfast establishment once the house addition is finished. Can only be used for personal storage of household items and personal yard maintenance equipment. Just really quick, this area is located in the transition area for the city of Crooks, is identified by the Envision 2035 comprehensive plan, which has the primary purpose of maintaining the rural landscape until eventual development of residential and or municipal development. Future development of vacant land is entirely dependent on the availability of building eligibilities for residential homes in the area. Got a few pictures that I took of the site, and just going through those. This is Renberg Street, looking directly east. As you can see, there's a couple homes in the area. There's a subdivision just down the hill. And then the subject property is located off to the right. As you can see, where I'm standing is one of the driveways that you saw on the site plan. There's also another driveway on Renberg Street, which is a little bit down the hill there.
David, the building on the left there, is that across the next street, or that's not?
That would be
the barn, is it?
It's a barn.
Is it
Correct.
the barn that we had issues with one other time?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Located to the west of the road that curves around there, as you can see here. So
About how far in distance is it to that first building straight ahead on the picture?
it's at least a quarter mile, I believe.
Fine.
So this is the view looking west on Renberg Street. As you can see, this is the petitioner's tree line right here on the west side of the property, that west edge, with the farmland in the background area. And then the driveway itself, that driveway on top, this is on top of the hill, is just to the left of this image. This is the 20-foot by 30-foot detached accessory building that is located on the property. This is looking directly back towards the west, towards the front of the structure. And this is the house addition, which is currently under construction, and the petitioner has applied for a building permit, which is currently in progress. This is that parking area that's located just to the south of that tree line, just off Renberg Street, as you can see in the background.
So that's that horseshoe of the driveway, right?
Yep, so this is the horseshoe. So you've got one driveway, and then you got the other driveway. This is the one on top of the hill, and this is a little bit down the hill. And some additional parking area for guests. And this is that driveway that's just down bottom of the hill. As you can see, this goes up. Some concerns have been presented from the township, and as well as at the last public hearing about access, ingress, egress for bed and breakfast establishment guests. There's been, I think, people that come over the hill, maybe going too fast, so there's concerns about safety of people, both from the site and off the site as well, just passers-by from the site. So want to actually progress. This is my last image right here. This is just looking north towards the agricultural field that's just across north of Renberg Street. So recommendation, staff finds that the proposed bed and breakfast establishment is appropriate land use for the surrounding area consistent with the goals and policies of the Envision 2035 comprehensive plan. Staff recommends approval of conditional use permit 18-33 with the following conditions. 1, that CUP 18-33 shall allow bed and breakfast establishment 2, that the property shall adhere to the submitted site plan. 3, that a sign may be posted on the property with a building permit not to exceed 16 square feet. 4, that all outdoor lighting shall be of a full cutoff and fully shielded design to prevent any spillage of light beyond the property boundaries. 5, that the house addition and 20-foot by 30-foot detached accessory building must have functioning smoke and carbon monoxide detectors as required by the 2015 IRC as adopted by Minnehaha County. 6, that the proprietor must obtain any applicable South Dakota sales tax that is required. 7, that the proprietor must obtain the required lodging license with the South Dakota Department of Health. Number 8, daily check-in of guests of the bed and breakfast establishment must be prior to 10:30 p.m. And 9, the 20-foot by 30-foot detached accessory building shall return to allow only personal storage of household items and property maintenance equipment by December 28, 2018. All other detached accessory buildings shall only be used for personal storage of household items and property maintenance equipment. 10, that approval must be obtained from Mapleton Township on driveway entrance and exit for guests of the bed and breakfast establishment. 11, that the proprietor shall maintain a guest list and make such list available at the request of the planning director. 12, that the planning and zoning department reserves the right to enter and inspect bed and breakfast establishment any time after proper notice to the owner to ensure that the property is in full compliance with the conditional use permit conditions of approval in the Minnehaha County zoning ordinance. And with that, I'd answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions for David? Is the petitioner here? Will you please come forward? State your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Pam Hoffman, and my address is 47291 Renberg Street, Renner, South Dakota 57055.
Are you fully aware of all the conditions that were presented? Okay.
Yes.
Any questions for her?
In the last month of recess, have you had a chance to visit with any of your neighbors about some of these concerns that they had?
I have not visited with anyone. I did go over to, I think it was John and Christine Hack. He had mentioned that it'd be nice to come on over and see everything, so I did stop by to invite them over, but they're out of town, so their daughter was going to give them the message, but I told them they're welcome anytime.
Thank you.
Any other questions for her? Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience that would care to speak on this item, either a proponent or an opponent? Well, I guess I'll close the floor then. Commissioners?
I guess I just that kind of question for Dave. Are we gonna leave the driveway then up to Mapleton Township then, or is that gonna be up to them then, or to decide, or?
So the driveway would be at the discretion of Mapleton Township.
Would be?
So the property owner would have to work with, the applicant had to work with the township.
I guess I really don't care for that east one. It is dangerous. I went over to take a look at it one day, and I kind of think it's a little dangerous there when you're coming.
I think she's been working with.
Yeah,
all
that's
the-
fine. That's why I just wondered if we're gonna leave it up to them, and that's fine then, so.
Correct.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Any other discussion?
Madam Chair.
Jeff?
You know, I guess I must admit I was a little perturbed when we were already in operation without, bringing this forward. At the same time, I also believe that better communication with the neighbors is really a key for so many of these situations, and people don't necessarily want to talk to each other, and then they want government to solve all their problems between them without the civility we really need. In any case, it appears that maybe emotions in the neighborhood have subsided somewhat since we're not overwhelmed here. I also drove through the area, though I didn't drive in the driveway or anything. And I probably didn't drive like a farmer, but it was just a Sunday drive. It seems like this could be a good working situation, and so I guess I'll make a motion to approve with the conditions.
Is that a second, Doug?
I'll second the motion.
With conditions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. There is no old business. New business, Kevin?
Yes, Kevin Hookman, County Planning Department. We did place one item on new business on the agenda and provided you with a memo. Approximately a year ago, the Planning Commission approved an ordinance amendment to the CAFO ordinance to allow CAFOs in aquaculture in the rural area. The ordinance was adopted by the Board of Commissioners and became effective in September of 2017. Since that time, we have processed several permits, and we don't have any permits pending, which is kind of nice to kind of take on any sort of amendments as we have seen how the ordinance works for those who have taken it on. And we have received several suggestions from those in the community and from those on the Planning Commission board to make some amendments to the ordinance. On our staff report here in the memo, I noted 3 different changes. The first change would be the notification requirements. If you look on, so at the end of page 1 and the beginning of page 2 on the memo, you'll see the requirements to notice, and then the requirement with a return receipt crossed out of the notice requirement. And that became an issue as we have had people think that a certified mail is adequate enough to notify neighbors because we do have that delivery confirmation by the post office with certified mail without that return receipt. And the return receipt adds extra cost to the petitioner and extra confusion for people who don't regularly use that type of mail service. Before I move on, I guess, is there any other questions about the notice requirements? All right. Second section of the ordinance that has brought up some possible changes is to the landscape requirements. The setbacks for the new ordinance was researched in depth using the South Dakota State University odor footprint modeling tool. And then once that those setbacks were created, the ordinance has a mechanism to reduce the setback by 50% with using trees and shelter belt plantings. That has been used by a couple of the applicants in recent CAFOs, and the suggestion came up that many of the professional landscape architects, as the ordinance required, don't really know how to plan for rural issues such as smells, and the primary people who they approach would be the Minnehaha Conservation District, which does this day in and day out, and they're the ones that supplies the trees primarily. So staff added 2 sections into the ordinance for this 50% reduction area. The first one is the double I under setback reduction number 2, double I, that to add existing trees may be considered toward meeting the requirements of the shelter belt. And then triple I, that we add the Minnehaha counts that the shelter belt must be designed to assist in the reduction of odor by the Minnehaha County or Minnehaha Conservation District and or a professional landscape architect. So we have the either or option to comply with that part of the ordinance. Is there any questions about that?
Kevin, I'm a liaison to the Conservation District too, and I've not gone to a lot of their meetings, as it seems like it's always on a Monday night or something. But could you check with them and see if this language appeals to their issue? Because they had complaints about this too, where, you know, it was all designed, but they brought it to them just to put a stamp on it.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Because I think they design it and then they go to these engineers to get the stamp on the
Yeah.
engineers. And I think, to me, I think you're doing all the work for this engineer. And that's why I think it'd be better just to conservation, just to stamp
Yeah.
it and have them do it, you know.
So make sure this is good with them, if you would.
Okay.
But I like it, so.
And then the final part of the ordinance that this is something that staff brought up, is that in the ordinance there's an engineering requirement for these many of these large barns, and the ordinance requires engineering for any barn that spans 50 feet wide. Well, while we were planning this ordinance out, at the same time, Dan, our building inspector, was working on improvements to how he reviews the plans for buildings. And he has, I can't even remember what guidebook, the Building Component Safety Information does structural components. Structural Building Components Association has a guide that he's been following that requires engineering for any structures larger than 60. So staff just is asking that we put those two together. So instead of a 50-foot engineering requirement, we'd put it to 60-foot engineering requirement to meet what the building inspector has been requiring already. So if there's any questions about that.
So is there any IBC codes that would supersede this BCSI?
This BCSI is more of a supplementary packet to the building code.
Okay.
Well, the IVC and the BCS, whatever it is, it sounds like you work for the government.
We do, you know, I work for a construction company, we obviously deal with the IBC quite a bit, and I just never had run across this other agency before, so I was just curious how they complemented each other.
Sure.
Now, Kevin, do you need a motion? Do you have a
Okay,
that
so if
request?
there's no other questions, staff is requesting that Planning Commission to determine if changes meet the intent of the Planning Commission and to direct staff to advise, to advertise for a public hearing. So if you want to have a motion that this is something that we move forward with.
I'll make the motion to advertise.
I'll second, but check with the Conservation District, please.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. There's no other new business? Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
By the way, it's traditional for the
Passes.
new guy to buy a round.